We are back together again for a monthly wrap up video, and let's get into June. I am filming at a different time of the day, much later in the day than I normally would. So, we are going to see how this goes. So, thanks for hanging with me on this one. Let's first get into my monthly practice with Animal Gnosis and my journal. For the month of June, caterpillar was the selected animal for the Animal Gnosis practice that I participate in with Animals and Arcana on her Patreon. And what I really loved about Caterpillar and the angle that Tegan took was all about just being okay, being still in your current step, in your current stage, in your current process. And we really kind of had a good laugh on Discord about being gluttonous and just absorbing everything around you and not feeling like you have to go, go, go or transform or progress into that next stage. And I actually didn't have any specific caterpillar images, of course, tons with the butterfly or moth in there. But I really loved the story I put together with these three cards. So we have the transformation card from the Earthbound Oracle. And I really love the keyword because, of course, that speaks to the classic symbolism and stage of a caterpillar. And we get a beautiful visual of it as well. So that was like a key component of selecting that card, was just having that caterpillar there for me to look at. And then I have the Nature Speak Oracle here, and I loved the scene or the landscape or the environment for garden. Not only is that something super personal, super approachable, and mostly accessible for many of us, that I liked the hominess that it felt. And I liked the phrase at the bottom here, time for nurturing. I thought that spoke really brilliantly to that sort of acceptance of being in this current state you are. And to just really hone in and embrace that, right? Because so much of the time is we are just pushed to go, go, go and do, do, do. And this just felt so serene and still and accepting. And then, of course, the Wild Chorus Oracle. I feel like this ends up being pulled for almost every month of my Animal Gnosis practice. But it always just hits so many areas and the visuals as well that I just can't say no. And what I loved about this one especially is the phrase on the card, between message and messenger. And I felt like that was the perfect summary or example of the message of Caterpillar for June. The in between. I love that. So I was really happy to see Caterpillar sit on my altar this month. I didn't see any caterpillars, but it's funny because right at the end of May, I actually saw this really awesome caterpillar in my yard and sent a video of it on Discord. And then a few days later, it was caterpillar selection. And I was like, oh, of course. Always a bit ahead of the game, but that's okay. So let's check out my monthly journal here. If you are curious how this works for me or you would like more details, I've recently put together a full video strictly dedicated to how I use this Happy Planner journal. Okay, so just to wrap up the Animal Gnosis a bit, as you know, if you've been around for a while, you know I include it towards the back of my monthly journal here. If you're new here, welcome. Hi. I create this layout every month in this planner, and I track my Animal Gnosis and then a weekly Oracle card pull, but we'll get into that later. So you can see here for Caterpillar, I have Nurture, which I pulled from the card. I try to pull keywords that embrace or at least are shown from the cards that I have selected for the month. So I have accept, or we could say acceptance, in between, and fulfill. So I really liked we kind of get a bit of like start, middle, and finish with those keywords. And really, I felt like Caterpillar was an excellent companion for June. Like it felt like I had a really great balance of just being okay with where I was at in the month, not really pushing myself too far one way or next, embracing those sort of in between days. And it was just really nice. It was a nice insect to bond with, you know? Because we don't always think of insects as like ones we want to find characteristics or meaning in. So it's always great when you can go deeper on something that maybe you weren't so sure about. Okay, so let's set Animal Gnosis to the side here. And let's get into my selected deck for the month, which was the Windrose Tarot. I don't normally use a tarot deck in this journal for my daily polls. You can see here I use the overview page to list out each of my polls for the day. And then I use a label maker to track the deck title. But what I really loved about using this deck this month, and let's just pull it out because it is so vibrant. I absolutely love the colors, the artwork. It's so gritty and editorial, but not making it unapproachable. Cool guidebook as well. It gives you enough, it gives you something to go on. Even some entries, I was like, oh, I don't know if I've ever really thought about the card in that way before. I might have to edit out if we come across some body parts that YouTube's not a fan of. As I say that, it happens. I adore this deck so much. The colors are great. Like the way the playing card emblems or symbols here are overlaid on top of the artwork definitely speaks to my artistic collage style as well. So maybe we shouldn't totally flip through this because, like I just said, I already passed through some ones that I'm going to have to clip around. But once again, I had a great time working with this deck for the day. Pull one card, read the guidebook, and do a very brief entry here. I don't write anything personal in this. I just speak to it as if I'm writing a guidebook entry or if I'm passing along a piece of advice. But I really found myself enjoying using a tarot deck this month because I normally use an oracle deck for the dailies. I just feel like I can just expand a little further with oracle decks, but this one was absolutely calling out to me for June, and I just have to go with my gut. And I'm glad I did because I had a fabulous time working with this. It was great to familiarize myself with the deck even more since I'm getting 31 days? No, 30 days, 30 cards that I get to interact with and read the guidebook entry on. And I always just find this to be such a valuable practice for me. So this section of the planner does go into July here, which is why this isn't filled out entirely. But I just love the attitude. I love the people, which is really odd for me to say. Maybe I want to say I love the people in this, but because it has that grittiness, because it has a bit of that like editorial fashion, maybe not as much as the Black Lily does, but it still has that vibe like you could have ripped a page out of a magazine. That a lot of those layers speak to me, and because it is extremely peoply and rather modern people as well, which once again is a bit of an anomaly in my collection and what I normally go for. Oh my goodness, the sun is just deciding to blast out here. Okay, we'll take it. It was a really enjoyable deck to use. And I'm looking forward to continuing on in the month of June here for my July entries, which, of course, I've switched my deck for that. But for my weeklies, I did stick with my typical Oracle deck. I just don't think I am really loving the idea of a weekly tarot card pull. I mean, I could see it being great for an archetype. And maybe it would be a good idea to try actually using a majors only deck for my weekly pulls instead of always using Oracle. That could be a really interesting thing to try. And I like that idea I just gave myself. Oh, now we're really getting the bright light, right? Okay, so let's check out the Oracle deck I use for weeklies. All right, so I use the Sacred Symbols Oracle for my weekly pulls here, and I love this deck because it's so simple, and it's simple in a smart way. So let's get situated. So, what I love about this is that the guidebook is so approachable. It's very streamlined and there's not a lot of fluff in there. It's to the point of what the symbol is representing and what the message is. So I found it to be like a really quick hit and something to easily connect to. The only bummer I find with the weeklies is that I only get to engage with this deck 4 times for the whole month. And it just doesn't feel like enough. But I do tend to use this in a pairing a lot. So it was cool to slow down with it and to sit on it and to marinate on it more and to just have its energy be out versus, a quick reading or not so quick. But I feel like I can sort of skim over a bit of this deck and just boil it down super quickly when I use it in a larger spread for a reading for myself. So the weekly definitely allowed me to slow down with it, engage with the guidebook as I normally do. I feel like I've never seen this card before. Does that ever happen to you as you're flipping through your deck and you're like, wait, I don't know if I recognize that artwork? But yeah, this deck is just such a home run for me. It's a quiet one, It's not asking for much, it's not asking for a lot, but it can do a really great job in lifting where you're needed or even a standalone practice like this, which finding a deck that can easily balance sort of multiple uses or multiple styles of practice, I think is a really great addition to a collection and just makes a fabulous workhorse deck. So let me put this away and we are going to talk about this new addition in my journal for this month. Okay, so for June, I did something new. I did something different. If you watched my journaling video, which I will link down below, I briefly talked about this and showed other journals and practices where I have tried to keep this up in a separate journal. But what I have just come to realize that I need to keep it simple. You know the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That is what I have to do for myself. So because I love this idea of being able to track my Finnish myth studies, I just can't keep up a full-time journal with that. So I was like, you know what? I felt super confident and really secure in this current journal practice that I have, that I felt like I had the energy and the space to open up to introduce something new. So, of course, the first thing I want to do is do a page on a Finnish character from the Kalevala, and I picked Aino. And what I did was basically summarized her story, and that's what the main writing is on this page. And then in these smaller little stickered off sections, which I didn't get to finish this one yet, but I will go back and fill this in with something. I just couldn't figure out what it should be. I just added in some facts, and in this bigger one here, I actually took a translation from the Kalevala from a snippet of her story. But I just really love the stickers as well. I had these stickers in a sticker book that just fit so perfectly. And while she's not a mermaid, but it was the closest thing to select for the visuals. And I just thought it was really cute too. So this was really cool to do. I'm looking forward to trying this out again in July. I'm not sure how it is going to look, since not every character or subject matter I select is going to have really cute stickers to accompany it, but we'll see. We'll see what I can make happen. And maybe I just take a different approach every single month, depending on what I select. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. This is just month 1 of me trying this. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great way to cement this as a monthly one time deal for the month and not put the pressure on myself of like having to fill this whole separate journal with all of this information, even though I totally would love to. But this is just more reasonable for me to do right now. So, overall, still continuing to love my journal practice. I find the whole experience to be highly rewarding. And like I said, it allows you to chip away at getting to know your decks. This is almost like a mini deck study for me. Like, that's kind of how I approach it in a way, right? Like, it has that flavor because I'm not going like really personal in this. I'm not really even asking a question. I'm just pulling a card and seeing what the message wants to present itself to me as. So that's why I kind of categorize it more as a deck study and maybe a bit less of a traditional engagement with a tarot journal. But once again, I'm all about keeping it simple for myself because the more I overly complicate things or make things too complex, I really can't keep it up. And the important part for me is to keep this up. Okay, so next, why don't we look at some of the new decks I got in for June? Unfortunately, I didn't get around to any pairings, which I'm totally bummed about because I love deck pairings, but the way this month was so up and down, busy, slow, feeling good, feeling bad, like I just really kind of had to ride the wave this month and I placed my energy in other areas. So, unfortunately, the pairing examples fell by the wayside. I am sorry to say because I do love that and I want to make that a monthly inclusion in this, but we are going to have to skip that for this month. Why don't we start with the most exciting addition to my collection, which is the Hollow Valley Tarot and the separate guidebook. This was on my wish list if you watched my wish list video. This was one that I wish I would have picked up when it was still available, and I had it in my cart many a times, and it was just one of those ones, you know? So I am really thrilled to bring this in finally. And if you are new here, I try to not use the new decks I bring in for the month until I do my wrap up video, like right now. And then I put it in the shelf and then it's free to use, right? But I try not to get overly excited and push everything by the wayside and just like latch onto the newest thing that came in. It's a good use of patience for me. So, once again, it's kind of interesting because there's this deck now that I brought in. We looked at the Wind Rose Tarot, and that is very modern people. And this is also modern people. And it also is a style that is what I would call like kind of girly or Pinterest like. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It just leans a bit more that way. And I definitely don't necessarily gravitate towards that. But that doesn't mean I don't like it. And there's plenty of decks that are illustrated that I think are so cute, but I can't have all the decks. I don't collect all the decks. And I have to engage and place my time into decks that are speaking to me the most, not just that because I think they're pretty. So this one that kind of balances a bit of everything, and I think what really sells it for me is the use of all the illustration pieces and symbols and the way they're almost collaged onto the cards and then mirrored. So it's very designy. I love that about it. Very nature heavy. The people are minimal, you know. They are like center of these compositions, but they're not overpowering and they definitely fit in with the rest of the imagery. I haven't given the guidebook a look at all, really. Because, like I said, I'm not using these at all until after the wrap up videos. But it looks like a very well produced guidebook. Ooh, lost lost my spot there. And I love the illustrations. I like how you can see it's so big. Sometimes that's a little obnoxious in certain guidebooks, especially when you're feeling like more writing would have been beneficial to the guidebook versus just a giant repeated image from the card. But this one definitely goes with the design and vibe of the overall package here and the world that is being sold here. So, super thrilled to have this in. Really so happy to have another deck off my wish list. I have been fortunate enough to be able to bring in a few decks since putting out that wish list video. So, okay, this is the Wayfinder Oracle, and of course, another. I saw it on Trina's Instagram and I went and got it. This one I think was like a tester run or some sort of reduced price copy. And it's another that I wouldn't normally bring in. Trying to make sure I'm like focused because I'm short and I can't see over the top of the phone screen. So I have a really hard time making sure things are in focus still and how the lighting is and all that. It's like just going into this blindfolded and hoping for the best. So I'm thinking we are good here. Now, this caught my eye because of the phrases. I don't really have a deck that has this tone of phrases used. And two, while maybe the collage pieces in the style isn't necessarily one I would instantly gravitate towards, but the way that it's laid out with these design elements, like this bordered frame on every card, brings a sense of design structure to the collage. And I'm absolutely a fan of collage and design as one for art. And I love the way the text is also laid out on the card. It goes with the imagery. And it's just one that feels fun. It was one that I didn't have something like it already. And the size is adorable, of course. The imagery having this heavy nature slant, of course, is very me. And I have a few decks that this will look absolutely wonderful with, and I think will also read perfectly together. Because for me, I pair decks with a few different criteria, which you can learn more about in my pairing video. So I'll link that as well. I have some check boxes, you could say, that I work around in the way that I think pairings work the best for me. And one of those ways can just be aesthetics and visuals. And there's a few other ways as well. But that's not the only thing I lean on, but it's part of it. I mean, I am a designer and an artist, both professionally and personally. So it is part of my visual language. It is a part of my reading language. It does impact all of those things. So it is an important factor to me, and it might not be for you, and that's totally okay. So this deck just kind of tapped into that lighter side for me. And once again, I think the phrases are interesting, and I don't have anything like it. This was the card I pulled, though, when I got the deck. And I just love the colors. There's an interesting use of scale as well. You know, we've got some smaller pieces, some larger pieces. Some feel a bit more designy and stuck on. Some feel more like a total kind of finished piece, like an overall scene. So I think it has a good use, a good combination. I will say, though, then that one didn't have the white box and do every other one. Hold on. Now we have to check. Because then that's like, where are the rules? See, this is how I go about putting a large body of work together. Rules are in place to keep things uniform and feeling like a family. Okay, so we have only 4 cards out of, I'm not sure how many are in here. There's a decent amount, but not a ton. 4 cards that don't have the white bordered frame box. Which, did I notice right away? No, not until I was talking about it with you. But for me, it's like if you're going to do that, then maybe a third of the cards have no bordered box. Or all of them do. I mean, at the point of not having 4 of them, it's like they all just should have. You could have totally put it behind the cheetah and the dagger here. Same with this. That could be turned into a box. That could have a box behind it. But that's just the way my creative director brain works as well. Like, I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for visual continuity. I'm looking for things that are being placed as a foundation for the art creation and where that plays out in every piece. But once again, that's just me. And that's just the burden I live with for being in the career that I am in. But this was super cool. I'm excited to use this now that the month is over, because I have been itching to use this, and I have shuffled it a few times. Like I said, I pulled the card. I've taken it out of the bag a few times to look at. So this one has definitely been calling me. It's super cute. I don't know what its story is or whatever. I got it on Etsy, and I don't know if it's coming out like full price or what, but very, very, very cool. An unexpected purchase in June is Stella's Tarot. Now, this is one that I've looked at before. I've known about it. I've thought about it, and I don't know, it's just kind of never went anywhere beyond that. And it kind of just got forgotten, you know? And I recently saw it pop back up again, and I was like, uh-oh. Oh, there we go. And I'm like, wait, did I shuffle this? See, now I'm getting confused. Oh, I think because I showed this in my VR to the One World tarot tag. Okay, I flipped through it and stuff because I'm like, wait a minute, I don't use these, as I've just been telling you over and over again. I'm so patient. I'm not using. Okay. No, it's because I showed it in a video. Okay, anyways, back to the topic. I am a sucker for Japanese decks. I'm really just a sucker for almost anything Japanese. And I love this illustration. It almost reminds me, in a very loose way, of the Dreaming Way Tarot. I feel like I'm getting that name mixed up because I was just talking to Jay in her comment section on her last video about the Japanese Daydream Tarot. So now I feel like I'm getting tongue-tied on that. Anyways, this almost reminds me in a way of a slightly fashion editorial illustration vibe. I love the textures. I love it how it feels like this very antique, rich painting style, but clearly has these designy elements to the composition and the layouts. I love the use of color. The figures are sort of like in a wacky scale. We've got like smaller heads, bigger bodies, larger arms. Like, I like the disproportionate aspects of the humans, because once again, it's like Lennox brought in another human deck this month and she says she doesn't like it. But when it's done in an art style that connects with me, that I find fascinating, that's done so well and purposeful, this is amazing, that it's irresistible to me. And this one is definitely irresistible. I am so glad I decided to pick this up and add it to my Japanese decks, because I have a fair amount of those. And it's definitely something that I look for specifically, because I'm at the point too of bringing in decks where the decks have to be unique in some way, whether that's the art style, whether that's the theme, the size, the this, the that. Like, there's multiple factors coming into play when I'm bringing in a deck now. It's just not going, oh yeah, I like that and I think it's cute, and like getting it. I don't do that. I think I did that early on in my quote unquote collecting. My collecting is with the purpose of using. I don't keep decks just to keep decks. I don't buy decks just to buy them or to save for whatever way. And like, I don't care if people do those things for those reasons. For me, it just, the energy of the decks being there and knowing I'm not using them or knowing I'm not into them or whatever the thing, like, just knowing they're hanging around and I am never going to touch them. Like, I don't like that energy. I don't like that being in my space. It actually is so distracting and just pulls my mind that the decks I bring in have a purpose to be used. If I'm not using them, they get passed along. And that's just how it works for me. And I have too many decks and I don't have enough space to keep just bringing them in piles and piles, because I do bring in a fair amount of decks every month, but I'm also shifting and moving on decks as well. So I keep that balance, I keep that space, and I just keep being reasonable about it with me. That's kind of like the bargain with myself. I don't spend money on clothes or shoes or purses or makeup or accessories or anything like that. I don't get my nails done. I don't get my hair done. Like all of these things. So like my extra money is going into decks. Like that's my fun money. And while it's my fun money, it still like needs to be purposeful. So that's kind of how I go about it. But once again, I don't mind how anyone goes about it because we each have a way that works for us, and that's all that matters. Okay, and the last deck I brought in this month is the Never Above Tarot, and I saw this on Martin's Instagram, and I was instantly intrigued by it. One, because I love the style of artwork, of course, but two, I don't really have anything like this, really. The size is great. Look how small it is. It's got a thin cardstock, but it's like not fussy. It doesn't feel like overly thin, but it is definitely on the thinner side. So if that's something that hangs you up, then this definitely would probably bug you. So what I love the most, I'm like trying to decide, like, I guess I've been holding up the decks this video, so we're just going to continue that on, is that these majors is exactly, I mean, not exactly, but this stacked composition with these symbols is exactly the way I had all the majors designed for the Peculiar Pathways Tarot. And once I got into the minors, I couldn't execute this stacked composition anymore with the symbols in a way that read well with the minors. It totally worked with the majors. And once I got this deck and started flipping through it, I was like, holy smokes, this is exactly the same direction I was going years back with Peculiar's work. And then I just took it in a more illustrated and interactive way, which I'm happy it ended up the way it was. But needless to say, I'm naturally biased towards this of liking it. And there's a good use of animals and objects, which once again is 100% my cup of tea. And I actually want to pair this with Peculiar. I think it would be a really awesome pairing. And it's also a pip. It's got some little extra tidbits on it. I'm really enjoying the way that it's done. And like I said, to bring in a deck now, it needs to be something different than I have. Here are the backs. Since it flipped, we might as well check that out. And I'm actually getting to the point I just like cannot see the screen. So anyways, I'm really just giving all of my ins and outs on this one today. Like, I'm sure I can't see. I hope it's in focus. I don't know how I'm flipping through the decks today. Oh my goodness. Anyways, excited to bring this in and use it because I think it's going to be a really cool reader because one, it feels like it'll be like really short, concise, and a bit snappy. But then two, because of the imagery, it's almost allowing that narrative and that imagination aspect that I like to bring into my readings through the art. So I think it's going to be a really interesting and intriguing way that I want to work with this. It's going to find its place, I feel. First of all, Pentacles is like my favorite suit probably, but I just love these quartz. This speaks my language entirely. And you even get a little quick snippet of a guidebook, which I think is just always a nice addition. So that was my decks for June. There is one that just missed the cutoff, and it comes tomorrow. So that will be in my July wrap up. But I might end up making a separate video on it because I didn't see a video on YouTube and people might be curious to watch a flip of it. So, anyways, now let's get into the actual meat of the month, which was books. One of the books I brought in this month is the Ancestral Tarot, and I've heard really great things about this. And I thought, okay, let's give it a try. I've been needing to refresh my tarot book selection because I haven't done it for quite a few years. So this month I really kind of went in. And I actually started working with this book when I got it in June. I'm not super far into it, but far enough that I've gotten a grasp. So this is the deck I'm using with it, of course. And so I won't show you all my writing because in this one, I am writing very personal, of course. So I have just picked out this notebook I had and am doing all of the spreads and exercises and prompts in this book. And I think for someone that doesn't have an established practice surrounding this, I think this is probably a fabulous book to begin with. I don't have anything of substance or structure, so I was super intrigued to see what this had to offer. And it does seem like extremely beginner friendly, but I'm not that far. So maybe there is some really great tidbits if you are someone who has more an advanced or established ancestral practice. But so far, I'm really enjoying it. I've had some really cool readings. Nothing has felt overly forced or impractical. There's been a couple things, of course, like with any book, it's like you can't agree with everything anyone ever says or writes, and nor should you. So things that don't necessarily connect 100% with me or something maybe I wouldn't engage with or do, that's fine. It's cool just to know and read about it, and I don't have to do it that way. But this has been really great to get to know. And I think I understand why this is a highly recommended book. So I'll definitely report back once I get through this more and I'm able to get a better grasp and a bigger vision or picture of like what the book is offering because I'm on, let me see, what page am I on? Like I'm not super far. But I'm on page 49. So not too early, but not too far into it. So I'll let you know how this goes, but so far, really loving it. Before we get into all of the tarot books that I brought in, I just want to touch upon, since we're just looking at a finished deck and talking about ancestry, that I did find this great self-published book on Etsy, and it's of Finnish background, of a Finnish flavor. So I have a small library that I have been slowly and purposefully collecting for. And this is going to slip right in there of all my finished materials. I don't necessarily get to it right away, but when I come across something and it's within reason to purchase, I do bring it in because I don't want to miss the chance of not being able to access it again because it is just so difficult to find English materials for Finnish, folklore, and mythology related stuff. So thrilled about this one. Plus, I mean, hello, lots of animals. How could I say no? Okay, because I am just a huge art and design nerd, and like that's my whole thing. I had to re up on my symbols books. I have some really great ones that got me through creating the Peculiar Pathways Tarot. Because if you don't know, that book is based on heavy research of the symbols of the Rider-Waite Smith. So I love books like this. I got most of these books secondhand. A few I had to buy brand new. But I always just try to buy like the cheapest secondhand copies I can find because I'm going to use them and reference them and I don't want to feel precious. So this one has just an amazing selection of symbols from around and different categories, which it's different than some of the other symbol encyclopedias that I have because this one is broken up into categories here. In one book, we've got signs and symbols, fauna, flora, flowers, sacred geometry, numbers, sound, signs, the body, rites and rituals, nature. So this one is really an all-rounder, and I am very much looking forward to it. Look at that. My other ones definitely don't have that. And while you'll find there's some crossover across these dictionaries and encyclopedias for symbols, there's usually a snippet or two that is different from the other. Like, yes, there will be some overlap, which I think is a great way to find common ground and a common understanding of what the general assumption of this symbol means. But then there's those little smaller pieces that feel more unique that you can then decide like how that speaks to you and do you see it that way and start incorporating that into your visual language for that symbol. So I love these books. Maybe sometime I'll have to go over like all my tarot related art and design books. Speaking of tarot related symbols and design here, this book is rather new and you get the whole card breakdown, which is a similar-ish way that I did the Peculiar Pathways guidebook. And then you get the larger meaning of them. And this is just 100% right up my alley. I have another book that is structured in a very similar way. But this one and the other one are doing something slightly different. So I'm interested to dive into this and sort of see what those differences are. I just love books like this. I just nerd out so big time on it. And I am really, really looking forward to this one. I'm just a sucker. I'm just a sucker for Rider-Waite. The stories, the narrative, the drama, the symbols, like the colors, the landscapes, like it just sings to me in a way that art does. And, that's just a huge aspect for me. So this one, I can already tell I'm going to love, but I'll definitely let you guys know what I think. Okay, and then the last one in this sort of vein of books is The Complete Dictionary of Dreams. And also, I kind of had a chuckle at the person's last name, which is my first name. And I was like, well, I guess I have to get it. Kidding. But this is also like a dictionary encyclopedia style book. And while I didn't get it specifically for the dream aspect, when I saw the inside of this and how it is speaking to breaking down of symbols and situations and peoples and all sorts of things, like modern aspects too that I definitely don't have in any of my books. Like I think it talks about like smartphones and all sorts of current modern day things. I said, oh, I have to have this to reference as well. So this is another really great way to work with and study and break down artwork and symbols in the cards. Sometimes it doesn't need to be labeled tarot for it to be useful in your practice. And this one is definitely one of those. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I can find in here. It is definitely the most different out of all my books like this. Now, this one I did kind of start reading because it's one that I have been really interested in. And I believe I saw it on Simply Hands channel when it first came out. I have had this on my wish list since it released. And I just really wasn't in a tarot book buying phase because it takes me, a couple of years to refresh, And this one always caught my attention when it released because it's portraying the cards in a different and fresh aspect in terms of the theater stage. And while I am not a theater kid by any means, I do really appreciate a different angle for looking at the cards and the artwork. See, I'm not that far into it, 23. Because it kind of can open up different doors or perspectives or the way we see the cards. So I'm certainly looking forward to reading through this one cover to cover. I don't always read all my books cover to cover, like especially those symbol dictionary ones, like no. that's for reference use only. But books like this, I definitely want to engage with and soak in the information. And, maybe at the end of it, I just don't connect. But I think it will be a fascinating read just because, like I said, it's a different angle. And I think we can always use something that maybe feels uncomfortable or uncertain to us or out of the norm and to engage with that. I think even if we don't agree or see it that way, it can open up other ideas for us. Now, this one I have no idea about, but when I read about it, I was like, okay, this is the way that I read the cards, I think. It talked a lot about storytelling and narrative and the visuals between all the cards in a spread. And I thought, yeah, that's definitely right up my alley. So I'm looking forward to giving this a read. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the prompts or any activities through here, but I definitely want to see what the author has to say about this whole tarot interactions. Like, it felt very up my alley, my speed, and I'm just looking forward to it. That's really all I know. I don't really know anything else. I am someone who's terrible with names. I don't keep track of who's who and who's done what. For me, it's all visuals. Like, if you show me someone's picture, I might be able to recognize them, but there's a good chance I might not. My brain just doesn't latch onto that information. So I'm always just like, yeah, I'm going to give it a shot. I don't know anything of it. I'm just going to give it a try. And that's what this one was. And I found it for such a steal on eBay as well. So I picked up this one for cheap on eBay too. I've heard mixed opinions about it, but these authors are the ones of the symbol book that I absolutely love for the Rider-Waite-Smith. So I want to give this a try. Not really sure even what I'm expecting here. But because I'm such a fan of the symbol book, I just thought, you know what? There's got to be something in here for me that I don't see in my other books. So, and it's small, so I could get through it rather quickly to decide. And it might just be one of those that's nice to have on the shelf and to like reference when you're just looking for another angle in the cards. And then lastly, this one I've had on my list for a while. So I finally decided to bring it in. I don't really know anything much of it, but I have a couple other books in a similar vein. So I figured I might strongly enjoy this. And I've seen some good reviews and I'm interested to see what I think, because one of those things, it's just one of those things where it's kind of hard to recommend or suggest a book for somebody because we all have our own ways of connecting and what we latch onto in these types of materials. So I always just go into this super open-minded and not have too high of expectations or any expectations at all, really. Just the hopes of like, I hope I like this, like I hope I can connect with this. Because I definitely have a few tarot books where I purchased it with the assumption that it was going to be or do this one thing. And then I got it and I was like, oh, not at all. Or like, that's not the way my brain connects with it, And so it's always just one of those trial and error things with books, I feel. Like decks, I think you can get a better feel for if it's going to work or not. But I think books are another thing. Okay, last on the book train, let's talk about books I read. Novels, okay? We're outside of the researchy books. Just entertainment books. I showed this last month, I'm pretty sure. North is the Night, and I finished it. I really liked it, and even though I have some critique, of course, I still really liked it. I felt like it was kind of dry in its descriptiveness. Like it was just a lot of dialogue and action. I think I went into this last month, so I won't get into it too much more. And then like every chapter was like a cliffhanger at the end. The chapters do switch between character points of view, which I don't really love, but this one just stayed between the two characters, so I didn't mind it. And the locations that each character were in during the chapter swaps were different enough but complementary where it felt like a good pacing and a good rhythm to the story. But I was just missing that really descriptive language. But it was a solid story and I still enjoyed it. So even with that, even though it felt a little dry for me, and I'm not one to review on a writing style or a writing level, like that is totally out the window for me. For me, it's like, could I get into it and could I enjoy the story? And did I think the story was good? Like that's as far as it goes for me for reading books for enjoyment and entertainment. Of course, this is Finnish mythology based. There is a second book coming out. I'm not sure if it's still coming out this year as it was expected to, but I'll definitely be reading book 2 when it does release because I can't wait to see how the story wraps up. And the second book I read was this one here. I really love this one as well. Two totally different styles here, but this one also is Finnish folklore based. You guys, I really try to align all my interests and activities and hobbies and areas where my time is being sunk into, like under a bigger umbrella. And like a lot of that is Finnish related because it just empowers so many different aspects of my work and things I find enjoyable in life. So that leaning, that flavor of things for me from any of this sort of like extracurricular activity stuff. This one, I think they label it as like a thriller or suspense. I definitely would not say that. It is very, very tame. A good story though, and one, oh my gosh, I cried. I cried at the end. I cried at the end of the other book so much though too. I am a crier. But this one was like, okay, it's a solid story. It's going along. It's a solid story. Yeah, okay, cool, cool, cool. The last like 2 or 3 chapters was just like, pow, it all just comes together and ties it all up and brings it all home. It was just so good. I loved this one as well. And it was great to have a different area of Finnish folklore in this book versus that North is the Night. And then the Finnish series, The Underworld Gods, that I'm still on book 4 and I haven't touched for months. But North is the Night and that series are based in the same underworld, the same story of the underworld. With the God of Death, they do use different characters and different aspects of the story. So they are different in that way. You're definitely not getting like repeated interactions and themes, but it's still based around a lot of the similar sort of storytelling of that. So I was like, this was really refreshing to get into and to have like such a strong family connection to this story here versus the last 2 are, romanticities. So it was great just to have a good story and I loved it. Oh my gosh, I really thought I was going to get through this way quicker, but the recording is still super long. I was extra gabby in this for being like, hey, we're going to move through this quickly at the beginning. And I just get talking and I don't know, sometimes it's really hard to shut me up. But we can just end it here really quickly, just like we started really quickly, and then all the middle went long. I hope you enjoyed my books and decks for the month. It was definitely a book haul month for me, and I love that because having physical books is so huge as part of the process. Like for me to learn, like I have to write and like repeatedly write things down over and over again for me to cement it in my brain. So having that tactileness of books to be able to read and reference and to always have a go-to no matter what really helps me learn and engage. So I find bringing in books for your practice to be invaluable. It's a huge aspect fit for me. And I'm loving all this like book content I've been seeing lately, this like last month or two in the space as well. It feels like everyone else was like a bit on the book train too. And I guess I got bit by the bug a little bit. So thanks for sticking around and hanging out with me. I hope you had a nice time. And as always, drop me a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. Let me know how your June went. Hopefully, you will be enjoying a lovely July here. And until next time, I will catch up with you then. Bye.